Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Agreth, and you are watching Marriage Partners Ministry. So I just wanted to do a talk with you today and share a few things that are on my mind and just kind of process through this a little bit. To start off with, I'd like to tell you kind of globally what I do, what Marriage Partners does, and that's that we teach people the emotional recipe which creates the feeling of romantic love. Because you see, nobody's talking about a divorce when they're in love. And I have a heart and a passion to save millions of marriages. And I know that couples that are in love, even if they have some challenges in life, if they're in love, they make it. They last a lifetime and they have passionate marriages. And so that's what I really want to share with you. That's globally kind of what I do and what I teach. And if you want to kind of see our whole system, so to speak, it's in our home DVD study course, and it'll teach you all about that. So in these videos, what I'm going to do is just take smaller portions of the whole global idea of what we teach and just kind of focus in on some of those smaller issues. So I was talking with an acquaintance of mine the other day, and he was mentioning to me, and he's probably about 35-ish roughly, so a bit younger. I think he might even be a little bit younger than that, so a bit younger. And he had mentioned to me that he's really concerned about getting married. He wants to be married. He really wants to be married. But at the same time, he's concerned about it because he's seen so many marriages fail. He's seen his sister's marriage fail. He has a brother. He's seen his brother's marriage fail. He has lots of friends, and he's seen their marriages fail. And so he's really concerned about that. And he's seen the pain that comes from a failed marriage. So, the financial brokenness when you have a divorce, the lawyer's fees, the splitting up the finances, the two different households, and all the just the financial devastation, the emotional torment and pain that happens through the process of a divorce, this literally splitting of families that happens from that. And he's concerned about that, and he sees kind of like the risk reward as being overbalanced towards risk, towards lots of pain. So we were talking about that for quite a bit. A lot of millennials, that's their concern. And millennials are getting married later and later and later, statistically speaking, in life. They're very concerned about that. A lot of millennials are living together before they get married because they're concerned about the divorce statistics, and they want to just kind of try it out and see what happens before they jump in. And I think that one of the biggest problems is that we use terms in our society like falling in love and falling out of love. And I think we've just kind of come to accept that the idea of love is some mysterious force. We can't influence it, we can't control it, it's just something that happens. You just kind of fall into it. You just kind of fall out of it. It's just one of those things that kind of happens. And I think that so many people in society have just come to accept that's for them, that's just the way it is. The problem is that, for one thing, it's untrue. It's not something you just stumble into or out of. The second thing is when you accept it, when a person comes to accept that there's nothing they can do about it, it's just like a spiritual kind of thing, a God kind of thing. It just happens. You can't impact it. Then what they do is they don't even try to impact it. They don't try to learn about it. They don't try to learn about being in love. And that's where the problem lies. Is if people were to seek knowledge on the topic of love, marriages would be so much more successful. And that's exactly what I do, is I teach people how the feeling of love is created. And I teach people in a recipe sort of format how you can create and how others create that feeling we call love. It's a feeling of romantic love. And you might ask, why do I focus so much in on that feeling? And the reason is because that feeling is the reason why couples stay married happily decade after decade after decade. And that's my passion for each and every one of you, is that you would have a passionate marriage that lasts a lifetime. That's my goal. That's my life purpose, is to help as many people as possible with marriages. So my acquaintance, my friend that I was talking with, I helped to explain to him that once you learn how the feeling of love is created, then you'll know how to sustain it. And there won't be any falling out of. Once you know how to sustain it, you just work it. I call it the emotional recipe. You just follow the recipe and it works every time. And then you will be sustaining that feeling of romantic love. When couples are in love, nobody's talking about a divorce, ever. They're not talking about a divorce when they're in love. So a fundamental teaching. And then when you know how to sustain that feeling, the fear of getting married will melt away, because you'll know the reason why people fall in love, how it happens. You'll know how to sustain it. And with that knowledge, you won't be afraid of having a divorce happen to you, because it won't just happen. It'll be a matter of choices then. You choose to follow the recipe, there won't be any broken home, there won't be any broken finances, there won't be any divorce. You choose not to follow the recipe, you're gonna have a broken home and broken finances and a divorce. So it puts the power, so to speak, in your hands, because you'll know how to have a passionate marriage that lasts a lifetime. And the fear melts away then, because you'll know these things. You gain that knowledge. You'll know these things. The fear will melt away, and you'll have no problem. You'll have no more fear of commitment, no more fear of getting married, and you can go ahead and have a wonderful, wonderful life. So that was kind of the gist of our conversation, and I wanted to share that because there's so many millennials that are going through that experience in their mind right now. They're going through just that fear. They'd like to be married, but they kind of see the downside risks. And if you don't know how to control the upside, so to speak, then it's just like an accident waiting to happen. But when you take our training and you gain the knowledge on how to create love, it's no more fear. It's no more fear. It just takes care of itself. So that was, I think, the first topic that I wanted to mention. Another thing that I wanted to bring up was that I teach what I call a policy of mutual agreement. So when couples are married, and any decision that needs to be made, it's a lifestyle choice, setting a budget, any kind of choices, I encourage couples to come to mutual agreement. And I actually have a policy I call mutual agreement. It's in the home study course, and it's in my book called Romantic Love's Subconscious Secrets. So the policy of mutual agreement helps couples to form their life together in creating win-win outcomes, win-win situations. And so, let's say one let's say the male in the relationship is kind of a type A, a go-getter, a little bit of a stronger personality type. And let's say his wife is a little bit more kind of dainty, a little bit more quiet, a little bit more withdrawn. And in that type of situation, probably what you might call nature's course, or the natural way things would go, is that there'd be a tendency in that relationship for him to get his way more often, for her to give in or capitulate more often. And that's what we'd call win-lose situations. So they wouldn't be having big drag-out fights typically, but win-lose situations. And that's not the best way to do it. That's not following the policy of mutual agreement. Policy of mutual agreement is that you never do anything until you have mutual agreement on it. So that would be a win-win outcome. And that's what I recommend. Now, a lot of times couples will say, let's say the guy wants to do lots of fishing in his free time, and let's say the wife wants to do lots of scrapbooking in her free time. And so they say, well, I'll just go off and I'll do fishing, and you just go do your scrapbooking, and I'll see you this evening, kind of a thing. And to do that once in a while, of course, is not going to destroy a relationship. But if you form a habit of doing it, you're not forming compatibility. So, one thing that I say a lot throughout all these different videos is that compatibility is something that you create. It doesn't happen on its own. So, females are very, very different from males. Just not to mention you're two separate different people. Just the fact of male and female, very, very different. There's not a lot of inherent compatibilities built in there. And so we have to choose to create compatibility. And if you don't, and if you just kind of get lazy and let nature take its course and figure I'm just going to keep it real, then you're going to see the differences of male and female. You're going to see the differences of, you have two different kinds of people, two different world experiences, and all the incompatibilities will begin to form. So I just made a real simple little picture here to, hopefully this will show up on the camera. You can see the two circles. There's him and her, very different people. And that center part where they touch, that's where they come together. So, and I realize that's not a very professional drawing, but so I can have lots of my own preferences, and if I'm the male component of a relationship, and the female can have lots of her own preferences and lifestyle choices, but it's where you come together. You choose to spend most of your time in those areas where you come together, and that's creating compatibility. Now let me tell you about a story of a couple that they took our home study course. They had all kinds of I wouldn't say opposite likes, but they like doing different things than what each other like doing. So they chose to spend some time just building compatibility, doing things together in their free time. And they started volunteering at an organization that fed starving children. And neither one of them thought this is the funnest thing in the world to do. This is great. But they came together and decided, well, we can stand doing it. So in other words, it's not as great as fishing, but it's all right. We're doing good for starving children. And she said, well, this isn't as great as scrapbooking. I mean, it's not as rewarding and fulfilling as what scrapbooking would be, but they decided to do it together because it was something that came into a mutual agreement on that it's, it's something that they could do. So they started doing it, and they did it for a while. And as they did it for a while, they began to like it even more. And it began to become a lot more rewarding for them. And I remember the guy telling me, he says, fishing was fun. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. But now that I'm doing so much more volunteering and feeding starving children, and I'm helping, and I feel good about myself. I feel like I'm a productive part of society. I feel like I'm helping others. I feel like I got great value because I'm giving out to people, and I'm, helping starving kids. I mean, that's a valuable thing to be doing, and I feel value and self-worth. And she told me similar stories about how she felt about it. After several years of doing this, and they grew in the role together. So this particular volunteer organization that they were working with would have a brief training session, and they would go pack boxes and stuff, to send to the children. And so the guy took kind of a leadership role, and he would grab the microphone, and he would begin to train some of the others that were coming in, first timers and stuff. And so he felt, and then he kind of took his role a step further to make it kind of fun, maybe have a little competition, kind of make it kind of exciting. So when they're packing these boxes, they're competing against each other, and they grew in this role together. They created compatibility, and they've done this year after year after year now at this point. And this couple is really, really, really in love. They're really, really, really compatible. But remember, they created that compatibility. And back in the early days, when they first started doing it, they had to pull themselves out of their own circles and get into that center area where they would come together. And they had a mutual interest, a mutual agreement on where to spend a lot of their extra free time. And in the early days, they didn't think it would be that rewarding of a deal, that fun of a thing, that fun of a way to spend their time. But they discovered pretty quickly that it was very rewarding. They're very glad that they did that, not only for the sake of their marital relationship, but for the sake of their self-worth as well. So these things we can grow into by doing them. So that kind of touches a little bit on the policy of mutual agreement that I teach, and and I guess the point that I want to emphasize is that when you first start to use the policy of mutual agreement, it feels a little bit awkward. Like you're so used to doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, and kind of how you want to do it. And to set aside a lot of your, we all have hundreds of interests. To set aside, let's say 70% of those interests, or whatever, 80% or whatever, and to just really pick up those interests that you share in common with your spouse, and to build on those compatibilities can feel kind of constraining at first and kind of awkward at first. But long term, over a period of time, that's the sweet spot in life. I mean, that's where you want to live. That's where marital joy and where having a passionate life comes from. It's from that area in life. So I just really want to encourage you tonight to follow the policy of mutual agreement, to create a compatible life together. It takes willful thought to choose to form compatibility, and I want to encourage you to do that. You're going to have such a great marriage when you do follow those, follow the policy of mutual agreement, as well as the other things that we teach you, of course. So, so you guys have a great evening. Oh, by the way, I would really love it if you come to take a look at our website, Marriage Partners Ministry. And you can log on, you can look at other videos, you can send us an email, a letter of encouragement. If you have questions, you can ask that. If you want to take a look at our home DVD study course, it's basically, it's almost like marriage coaching, but in the privacy of your own home. So you can go through it at your own pace, and that gives you the whole global view of everything that we teach, so that you can create a passionate marriage that lasts a lifetime. And that's my hope for you, really. And that's my goal for you. And just keep one thing in mind. What you make happen for others, God